everyone has a purpose and a position in life. My purpose is to communicate to the masses through my music.
As for his position, rapper T.I. is ready to make it clear, putting out songs that are more than just a catchy hook. On his new album, T.I. is mixing his party anthems with political statements. I'm Tom Power. This is Q.
Composers used to finish the whole soundtrack in 3 days. And I said, I'm going to do one movie in 6 months, and people are laughing at me. What do you get paid? How are you going to sustain? All these questions which I didn't even care about.
A.R. Rahman on how you should give your passion all the time it needs. Composer A.R. Rahman made you dance to Jai Ho, but his talents go far beyond Bollywood. Because when it comes to music, A.R. says there's more that unites than divides.
I was just writing to vent my frustration, and majority of songs of mine come from something bugging me and my way of dealing with it.
What was bugging Patterson Hood from Drive-By Truckers was the state of his country. Drive-By Truckers have had enough of gun violence, segregation, and the Confederate flag. On American Band, they give you their State of the Union.
The coming of the railway was a paradigm shift in people's existence in a way, 1,000 times more than the internet has done in our lifetimes.
That was Billy Bragg on his decision to ride the rails, lay down some tracks of his own. Huh? You'll hear a lot more from Billy Bragg along with musician and producer Joe Henry when they play some music from their record Shine a Light, live in Studio Q. All of this, along with Working Mom's Catherine Reitman, is happening right now on Q. Clifford Joseph Harris Jr., better known as T.I., makes the kind of music that's meant to pulse out of club speakers. Songs like Live Your Life, which he did with Rihanna, or maybe you know this one with Justin Timberlake. Dead and Gone is one of T.I.'s biggest hits and one of his many hip-hop anthems. His new album, though, is a little different than what you just heard. Us or Else, A Letter to the System is the kind of music meant to get into your head, into your heart. It's raw, political commentary. But as you'll see in this interview I did with T.I., the Atlanta rapper and actor is also confronting some of his own biases. Have a look. The new album is called Us or Else, Letter to the System, and from the beginning to the end of this project, you're tackling pressing social issues, racism, police brutality, systemic oppression in America. What was the moment that you knew that these issues were going to be the focus of your new album?
Well, I did not have a moment when I knew that this would be the focus of a new album. I think that there was a series of things, where I just had a culmination of epiphanies, if you will. I think filming the movie Roots, the readaptation of Roots, and actually being on plantations and just absorbing that energy. I also took a trip to Africa and went to Nelson Mandela's home and spoke with his grandsons, and just that pilgrimage also kind of awoken some senses inside of me, and then when I came home, like the string of unanswered, unwarranted murders of innocent Black men at the hands of police officers. I think that culmination of things led to just an abundance of material seeping out of me, and after I had so many songs, it was like, well, we may as well make it a project, and that's how it came about.
I know that you've had your own altercations with law enforcement in the past.
Sure.
You've served time in jail. I mean, how have those experiences played into the way you see these issues?
Well, I think it's offered me a great deal of insight. And I think it's also given me um, a broader perspective. You know, I think now I look at things from a big picture view.
What do you mean?
I mean, a lot of things that meant so much to me then don't really mean as much to me now. You know what I mean? A lot of things that would get a rise out of me then don't necessarily get a rise out of me now because it's just not worth it. Let me see. It's the 5 and 5 theory. You know what I'm saying? Like if whatever you're going through won't matter to you 5 years from now, then don't spend more than 5 minutes worrying about it. You know what I'm saying? So
That's hard to learn, man. That's hard to learn.
yeah. And I mean, you know, practice make perfect. You know, the sooner you start, the better you get. I'm not, you know, I won't say I'm the best at it, but I'm better than I was years ago.
You've openly admitted, like you just did, that this is a learning process for you. You were kind of late to the party when it comes to speaking about these types of social issues in your music. And I have to admit, do you agree with me?
No, I wasn't late to the party speaking about it. I just think that, you know, like for instance, I give you an example. On Paperwork, there was a song called New National Anthem. And New National Anthem was, I think I recorded it right after the Trayvon Martin situation, or the verdict. And as impactful of a message as it was and as necessary of a message as it was, it still did not overshadow the success of About the Money or No Mediocre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just simply because, you know, that's just not in the business of music. You must work the music that is best for business. And, you know, you can't necessarily force feed a message on people if you're expecting to yield a great benefit or turn a profit. So, you know, you have to make certain sacrifices in order to put music like this in the forefront of your career.
Was that a hard sacrifice for you to make?
It wasn't a hard sacrifice. It was just, you know, it was a conscious-minded sacrifice. I went into it knowing this isn't a commercial play for,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
for Grammys or to do big numbers. Or it's a passion project.
Is there a time in 2017, at the time we're talking about this right now, could you go back to making songs that are more party anthems,
absolutely.
songs that are lighter? You don't see that as a
Oh yeah,
contradiction?
give me about 60 days. You
Yeah.
me, I'm telling
I'll give you 60 minutes. You and I'll go into a room.
Yeah.
We'll work it out for our Newfoundland tour.
Absolutely. I mean, man, the thing about it is, what we all have to understand is everyone has a purpose and a position in life. My purpose is to communicate to the masses through my music. Now, I won't always communicate in the same tone. I won't always convey the same message, you know, because if I did, then I would kind of, the people would lose interest, you know. So in order to maintain my influence on the masses, you kind of have to mix up the messages, and sometimes you got to mix up, you know, the vegetables with a little applesauce so they can take it in a little bit better.
Spoonful of sugar on the medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. So of course, you know, we're gonna have party records and anthems, and you know, we're gonna continue to be the sound. We're going to continue to provide people with the soundtrack to their lives. That's exactly what I feel we were put here to do.
If you're just tuning in, my guest today is musician, actor T.I. His new album is called Us or Else, Letter to the System. Can you tell me a little bit about the issues you were exploring on this one?
Man, I mean, I think I've always assumed the responsibility of being a voice for the voiceless, you know? So I wanted to put myself in the shoes of an average minority or an average black man in an underserved area of society. You know what I mean? And I wanted to speak through his voice. I wanted to, you know what I mean, kind of put myself in his shoes and have his thoughts, fears, opinions, conspiracies, you know what I mean, have those given a voice. You know, that was my intention.
T.I., it's been a real pleasure speaking with you today.
Likewise.
And I really love the new record.
Thank you so much, man.
It's been a pleasure speaking with
It's
you.
been a pleasure, man. I can't wait to get out here, man, and start that tour in Newfoundland.
Newfoundland, yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm waiting to get there with you.
Bring a parka.
You know?
Work-life balance. And if you're a working parent, you're striking that elusive balance, it can seem pretty much impossible. What does juggling work and family life look like in real life? It's a question that sitcoms over the ages have tried to answer, but if you ask Catherine Reitman, she'll say it's joyful and it's dark and it's raw and it's funny all at the same time. She's the creator, producer, showrunner, and star of the new CBC comedy Workin' Moms. Here's our conversation. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. Got a cool setup here.
Do you spend a lot of time in Toronto?
I do. I live here. I got 2 kids here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I thought you were down in LA.
I was born and raised in Los Angeles. My parents are both from here. My mom's actually a Montreal based, and my father was from Toronto. And we came out here. Well, we come here every year for the film festival.
Right.
And I brought our sizzle. We had made a sizzle called Workin' Moms. It was about 8 minutes based on this concept I had when I returned to work too quickly and got postpartum depression. And it was a comedy based on sort of the dark and light moments of working motherhood. And Sally Catto over at the CBC took a look and said, I think you're moving here.
You mentioned earlier that you have 2 kids here.
I do.
In Toronto. And I know you were working on this show, Workin' Moms, while you were pregnant with one of the kids. How close, and I'm sure this is a question you're getting all the time, but how close is the character you play, Kate, to Catherine Reitman in real life?
A younger, more naive version of myself. You know, when I first wanted to go back to work, which, look, as an actress, you just want a job, right? I mean, you're not going to be precious about when you go back to work. I was lucky enough to get a job 6 weeks after my first pregnancy, my 3-year-old, and who was then 6 weeks old. And I hit so much postpartum depression when I returned, and I remember just feeling just so heavy about it. But I also felt this like odd entitlement that I am allowed to go back to work. I mean, it's something that, you know, my mother didn't raise me thinking, is that you have a kid and you usually make a sacrifice, and most women I know feel really guilty about being a working parent. So I think the character Kate's approach to this is how I felt in the beginning, which is, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
I want a kid and I want a job. I want everything. Why can't I have everything this extraordinary world has to offer? And of course you learn, as I have, that a lot of sacrifices have to be made in order to live that full life. Yes, let's give this old thing another whack, huh? Yeah. It's okay. Please. No, it's all right, buddy. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank you, Charlie.
That's Catherine Reitman from the television show Working Moms. So is this true? That wasn't a written scene in the show?
Sorry. It was just a crazy, you know, I spoke to you a moment ago about timing. The timing of my life in the last 2 years has been just, someone wants me to make this show, someone up there, because everything seemed, the timing-wise of it all was just really serendipitous and wild. I got pregnant the day before I sold this series, and my pregnancy was through the writer's room. And when we got to this particular scene, about 48 hours earlier, my son decided to stop latching on. And I think that's because, and to any mom listening who's experienced this, I so feel you, stress is not a conducive environment to make good premium breast milk. And I was so stressed out. The one thing I kept saying is, yeah, I'm going to be gone 18 hours a day. I'm not going to see my son, but God damn it, I'm going to breastfeed. I'm going to pump. I'm going to make milk, and that's how I'm going to contribute to my child's life. And my body was like, no, you're not. You're exhausted and stressed out, and I'm not going to make anything. And so my milk stopped. My baby started crying. And 2 days after that is when that scene was going to shoot. Now, I have twin boys, Mason and Nolan, who played my son Charlie on the show. For whatever reason, this happens sometimes, even with twins, they weren't available to shoot that moment.
Okay.
My baby Liam, who was only 3 months old at the time, happened to be visiting on set.
Oh, yeah, your baby.
My actual real life Catherine Reitman baby. And so that crying, it made me so emotional because that's actually Liam crying. It's actually Liam in that scene. And so I went to breastfeed him thinking, you're going to get gold here because he's not going to latch on and he's going to torture me and go crazy and it'll be this great scene. It'll feel so potent. And he latched on in the middle of the scene. And the ending of that episode now is a win, which is the baby latches on. And that moment of me going, oh my God, thank you so much. Oh my God. That gratitude, that relief is completely real.
That's beautiful. If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with Catherine Reitman about, I guess, art imitating life in your new show, Working Moms on CBC. That's a heavy thing you just told me. That's a heavy story. That's a real life problem that a lot of people don't think about. How do you balance that line?
You just have to be truth to it. It has to be honest. I think the step one is writing. Step two is hiring a cast that really respects the material and honors that moment in that character's life. And then, of course, the direction of it and cutting of it and the music you apply to it. I mean, I guess there's several steps to it.
Yeah.
But for us, look, personally, I've always dealt with moments of pain through laughter. I'm the chick that's laughing at a funeral, not because I disrespect the dead, because I don't know how to process pain. I've always needed to laugh or find something bizarre about it and laugh through it. It gives me relief, and it gives me a way of thinking about it in an objective way. So there was no question that dealing with postpartum for me personally, the best way to deal with it was to be able to write something really funny and true about it. And everything else that you mentioned, those are all real life topics of, just the struggle. Someone once described to me that being a working parent is like having a rubber band inside of you, and the further you get away from your kid, the tighter that band gets.
Right.
And at some point that band breaks, but it's always trying to keep enough give that you can get through each day.
Catherine Reitman, it's been so much fun to talk to you.
You too, thank you.
I had a great time. Still to come on Q, award-winning composer A.R. Rahman joins me to reflect on a career spanning over 100 films. But first, a performance and chat with Drive-By Truckers.
Once the band imagined it became the war it was when we were kids.
When Drive-By Truckers put together their latest record, American Band, they had the state of their country in mind. They wrote about Black Lives Matter, police brutality, school shootings, Islamophobia, all of this before the U.S. election. Now with Donald Trump as president of the United States, the album has some added relevance.
Surrender under protest if you must.
The band finds themselves singing overtly political songs in uncertain political times, and that's a new thing for Drive-By Truckers. Southern rock protest music, for sure. This is the Drive-By Truckers with Once They Band Imagine, recorded live in the Q Music Studio.
Heartstrings dangling ripe for the yanking, and a lot of reasons grabby was good. Poor huddle masses singing, boots up their asses, giving grabby what he needed to pull. All the way back to where ghosts from the past were still fighting their wars from the grave. Complete with record burning and threatening and spurning the crime of getting blood on the page. Right after 9/11, the company that owned the majority of the radio stations in America sent out a memo. It wasn't a ban that just sings better, but they recommended that all their stations not play all of these songs on this list. I don't know what criteria they used to determine what was going to go on this list and what wasn't. There were a lot of songs with the word bomb in the title, things like that, and I can't imagine the Gap bands, You Drop the Bomb on Me, making anybody sad at any point. But the common denominator was most of them, like Imagine, was somewhat anti-war, and I thought, wow, why? How do you get it in your head that after anything, tragic or otherwise, that there might be songs people probably shouldn't hear? And that song in particular just seemed utterly absurd. And much later, I got in the car one day, and when I turned it on, the radio was on, and Imagine was playing. It had been back on the radio, and I decided I was going to write that song. I didn't know what it was going to sound like or what the first words were going to be, but I knew I needed to write a song about it.
Are you now, or have you ever been in cahoots with the notion people could change? When history happens again, if you do or you did, you'll be blamed. Baseless inquiry to no knocking entry, becoming the law of the land. Half-cocked excuses for bullet abuse regarding anything browner than tan. 'Cause once they banned Imagine, it became the same old war it's always been. Once they banned Imagine, it became the war it was when we were kids. Once they banned Imagine, it became the same old war it's always been. Once they banned Imagine, it became the war it was when we were kids.
Coming up, Drive-By Truckers takes the stage again in Studio Q. But first, I speak with Oscar-winning composer A.R. Rahman about a lifetime of making music for movies. I want you to think of a song. Not just any song. I want you to think of a song from a movie. A song that, in your mind, is that movie. Okay, so maybe you're thinking about Kevin Bacon singing Footloose, or maybe Stuck in the Middle with Mr. Blonde in Reservoir Dogs. Or Don't You Forget About Me, playing as Judd Nelson pumps his fist in the air in The Breakfast Club. Or maybe you're thinking about this. That's Jai Ho from the 2008 hit movie Slumdog Millionaire. And the fact that you probably won't be able to get it out of your head all day is thanks to Indian composer A.R. Rahman. Ala Raka Rahman won an Oscar for Best Original Song for Jai Ho, and also took home the Oscar for Best Original Score for Slumdog Millionaire. The thing that's only the tip of the iceberg for A.R. Rahman. And he was in Toronto for a celebration of his work and was kind enough to sit down with me in Studio Q to take us through a pretty amazing musical journey. AR, you're in Toronto to attend this big retrospective show celebrating 25 years as a film composer. You're an artist who seems to always be working on new things, focusing on what's new, what's next. And you're also a young man. I can only imagine it must be kind of strange to look back.
I'm not that young. I just finished 50.
Well, that's not too bad.
That's not too bad.
Most time retrospectives don't happen until you're about
I know, right?
80, 85.
Yeah, but I started very young. I started at the age of 12.
Yeah. How are you feeling about looking back?
Feels good. Feels good. I feel very blessed and humble, and to be loved by my family, people who listen to my music, and the world.
You know, I think that the music, you say that the music that's loved by people around the world and loved by your family, it's a wide variety of music and a wider variety of music than you find from most composers. There's classical music in there, Western classical music, Indian classical music, folk music, rock, electronica, there's hip hop. But do you see a commonality through all those genres that you play, like a signature that is you?
I think we go to the primal sense of what I come from is to get a sense of peace, to get a sense of unity within me.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's a rhythm section or whether programming rhythm or a melody or a repetition of a chant, or there is a sense of meditation or spirituality which is within me, which comes out, whether even if it's a fun song.
You don't strike me as a composer or a musician who likes to look in the past.
I just want to keep evolving. At the same time, not get boggled by the technology, but how to master it and how to throw the technology aspect, the word out,
Right.
and relate to me with soul, with the kind of feeling which I have, and translate that without any boundaries or without any restrictions of knowing about programming or switches. Or so I have all my key commands memorized, and and when I go to sit on my Logic or when I program stuff.
Is that so? Like you have memorized everything you have to do technologically, so you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, I don't have to think about it, because that's when I felt like it took 3 years for me to shift from a sequencer, hardware sequencer, to the computer
Yeah.
workstation.
Yeah.
And I would have it set up in a room so that I would surpass this whole, oh, what is that key command for this?
Well, yeah. Yeah. But it's
For
not
that, it took me 3 years. So till then, I didn't even go near. I had the computer, had my Pro Tools Logic set up, and I wouldn't even touch it. I would still be sequencing on my MC500, Roland MC500, because I was so fast on that. It comes out as my music totally, and doesn't depend upon anybody else. It took me a long time to be collaborative and to work with other musicians.
Do you find that hard?
It took me, because I'm so intimidated by people. At least back then. Now I'm better now.
Yeah.
And not after playing with Mick Jagger and Dave Stewart and Joss Stone and David Marley all together in Henson Studios, where We Are the World was recorded. So after that, it changed my life.
Yeah, I think once you're with those guys, you're going to be okay. And you work. What I can't get over about you is you work a lot in this system, or we call it over here, I guess, the Bollywood system, also the Collywood system. Has a reputation for being this film factory, this Indian film factory, constantly pumping out movies. It wasn't uncommon for you to be working on 5 to 10 soundtracks in a given year. And back then, you were doing, was it like 5, 10 soundtracks a year?
At that time, people were laughing at me.
Why?
Because composers used to finish the whole soundtrack in 3 days, with an orchestra, of course. And it used to be a formula. Like each composer would do 40, 50 movies a year. And I said, I'm going to do 1 movie in 6 months, and people are laughing at me. What do you get paid? How are you going to sustain? All these questions which I didn't even care about. So I said, I'm doing this for passion, not for anything else. I don't care about anything. So there's sense of satisfaction in that, because it changed from like the rule of you have to finish a song in 8 hours. That's how it was.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't care. I'll do it for a week, just to make a statement that I can. Not that it's not a bad thing to do a song for a week, or a bad thing to do for a month, till you're satisfied with it.
I want to go to the one of the kind of key moments, which was the soundtrack to the Slumdog Millionaire. A lot of people in North America were introduced to your music through that movie.
Picked up their packs on my journey. Dogs run next door to follow me. Hammer luck, some days they suck. We live for the buck, we get for the family.
Do you still like listening to that?
Yeah, it's fun. I think I remember how Danny was saying, "Hey, why don't you?"
This is Danny Boyle?
Danny Boyle.
Yeah.
Saying Danny was like, "Why don't you collaborate with MIA?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And because MIA knows me and I know her too, of music. And so she came in because she was in London at that time, and she saw the movie. We sat in that little room and jammed for this one.
Oh, yeah, just improvised?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then she said, "Why don't you send the beat?" And she was in New York. I sent the track, and she put this rap and sent it back.
Why do you think it struck such a chord?
I think we were very lucky.
Really?
Because all the stuff which came that year was pretty depressing, movies-wise.
Yeah.
And in this movie gave a lot of hope. And this is the one which stood out. And it was not in a dog. It stood out like we wanted to. It's an underdog story, first of all. And Danny first said, AR, I've never done a movie like this ever. I don't know how it is, just watch it and tell me. That's what he said. I don't remember those words.
Do you see your music as ultimately hopeful?
I've done dark things too. I've done scored for the Lord of the Rings musical.
Yeah.
And there's so much of dark music I've done. But songs-wise, I think people respond to this kind of thing immediately. They feel connected because we're all suffering.
Yeah. How has the current political climate? I mean, obviously you can't escape it. How is the current climate affecting your work?
I think you feel even more motivated to do beautiful things. I think this is the time for artists, for songwriters, for poets, and for filmmakers to show the world what it should be, what it could be.
Thank you so much. Pleasure speaking with you. When Q continues, Drive-By Truckers have another brilliant performance for you. But first, Billy Bragg and Joe Henry join me to talk and play some music from their railroad-inspired record, Shine a Light.
The cab went by at night.
More than 30 years ago, a skinny kid from Essex, England, picked up a guitar and tore into some of Britain's most hallowed institutions. Today, Billy Bragg is still around, but now he's the hallowed institution. Billy's activism, born in punk rock, channeled through folk music, is what made him a British icon. But not too long ago, he left England to ride the U.S. railway line. Together with American singer and producer Joe Henry, Billy compiled classic folk and blues songs all about the American railroad. Billy and Joe journeyed nearly 5,000 kilometers by train from Chicago to L.A., recording the tracks. The result is Shine a Light, field recordings from the Great American Railroad. When Billy and Joe stopped by Studio Q, they began by playing the American folk classic popularized by Hootie Ledbetter, also known as Leadbelly, one called In the Pines.
Little girl, don't you lie to me. Where did you sleep last night? In the pines where the sun never shines. You shiver when the cold wind blows. The longest train I ever saw went down that Georgia line. The engine passed at 6 o'clock. The cab went by at night. In the pines where the sun never shines. You shiver when the cold wind blows. Little girl, what have I done to make you treat me so? You have caused me to weep, you caused me to moan, you caused me to leave my home. In the pines where the sun never shines. You shiver when the cold wind blows. longest train I ever saw was 19 coaches long, and the only girl that ever I loved is on that train and gone.
Billy Bragg and Joe Henry. Billy, right off the top, I want to ask a question that was written by the producer of this segment, who's from Cornwall,
Right.
in England. And he says this, and I'm going to read this verbatim. He said, "I'm trying to picture you sitting at home in Dorset, thousands of miles away from America, cup of tea in hand, munching on Marmite, watching the two Ronnies, thinking I've just got to do an album about U.S. railways."
Well, the thing is, in between, it's actually Marmite and cappuccino rather than tea. Tea doesn't go so well, I find, with Marmite. No. But actually, in the last couple of years, I've been writing a book about the period in British cultural history when our pop music went from being jazz-based to guitar-led. And that's kind of like happens in the late 50s, and it hinges on Lonnie Donegan having a hit with Rock Island Line in January 1956. Donegan is the first British musician to get in the charts playing a guitar. And this inspires a generation to pick up guitars and play three chords. It's a lot like punk, really.
Mm-hmm. This is the skiffle, right?
Skiffle, exactly, yeah, what we call skiffle. And skiffle really, rather than being a particular style, is a word. If you were a teenager in 1957 going to a skiffle club, rather than expecting to hear a particular genre of music, you would just expect to hear music played on guitars. You know, it was because some of it was what we call skiffle, you know, songs like Don't You Rock Me Daddy-O from that period, but a lot of it was American folk music. There was calypso in there. Mm-hmm. There was English folk songs. Mm-hmm. It's really, that's why I didn't say it's a book on skiffle. It's a book about how the guitar comes from the back of a trad jazz band, which is where Lonnie Donegan is in the rhythm section, to the front of the stage and changes everything. And what happens is Leadbelly's repertoire is absolutely key to all this. George Harrison famously was asked if the blues ever influenced the Beatles. And he said, "Oh yeah, Leadbelly." And I said, how's that? I don't hear Leadbelly. He said, "Well, no Leadbelly, no Lonnie Donegan. No Lonnie Donegan, no Beatles." And it's that period, looking at that period and realising how key Leadbelly's repertoire was to that and how many railroad songs were there that got me starting to think about the place of railroad songs in our culture. And when I say our culture, I mean a universal culture, because in my country, the songs of escape and aspiration tend to be sea shanties. You know, you can't get on a train in Britain and escape jurisdiction like you can in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can do that in Canada, but our songs, that sort of song of getting away from escaping from a terrible love affair or a terrible situation, tend to be people who are bound for South Australia and they're haul away, them kind of songs, you know. Yeah. But the railroad song, because it shades, the golden age of the railway in North America, 1850 to say 1950, shades into the pop culture. There's so much great blues, country, folk, rockabilly, everything, jazz, Take the A Train. There's so many great train songs. It made me start to look at them and think of reconnecting with them.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Drive-By Truckers have another galvanizing performance for you when Q returns.
And someone was reminded they ain't called colored folks no more.
All right, so we're going to leave you today with some more politically charged music from Drive-By Truckers. Remember, for more performances, uncut interviews, full episodes of QTV, pay us a visit at cbc.ca/Q. I'm Tom Power. Later on.
In some town in Missouri, but it could be anywhere. It could be right here on Ruth Street. The fact it's happened here. And it happened where you're sitting, wherever that might be. And it happened last weekend, it'll happen again next week. And when they turned him over, they were surprised there was no gun. I mean, he must have done something, or else why would he ever? So they spin it for the anchors on the television screen, so they can wag their fingers without asking what it means. What it means was guess the first thing I really wrote for what became this record. And I wrote it a couple of years ago during, right after the Ferguson decision and the, Trayvon Martin's murder was really, really fresh in everybody's collective memory. And it was still kind of in the news. And just the fact that, the things like that keep happening. And it all ties in with what we were also talking about. One of the themes of this record is fear of the other, whatever the other may be.
Down in Florida, standing ground, is free to beat up on his girlfriend and wave a brand new gun around. While some kid is dead and buried and laying in the ground with a pocket full of Skittles. What it means.
It was everything I'd been thinking. We were on the same page. I was watching this happen over and over and over, and I hadn't put it to paper yet, but it was everything I'd been thinking, for sure.
With the joystick lands a rocket on a comet. We're living in an age where limitations are forgotten. The outer edges move and dazzle us, but the core is something rotten. 'Cause we're standing at the precipice of prejudice and fear. We trust science just as long as it tells us what we want to hear. We want our truths all fair and balanced, as long as our notions lie within it. There's no sunlight in our asses and our heads are stuck up in it. And our